Part four, we march. Part four is we move on to number four in our power rankings. Trimmy Charles. We told him we wouldn't do it, but here we are. Number four. Crimmy's made a few trades. The roster looks a little different since the
Few.
last time
He
we
made a
saw
few
him.
just yesterday.
Some players have bounced around a little bit. He's gone all in. He's pushed all his chips in the middle of the table. He's littered with C contracts and non-keepers and big contracts and all that good stuff. He's got a rotation of players. He's got a lineup of players. And I guess I'll let you talk about what's actually here first, Eric.
I think there's a lot here. It just depends on whether his guys keep pushing forward or not. Because, like I said, I think Crimson has a very good shot of getting a bye in the head-to-head playoffs. I mean, when we look at where he is at with Jay, and we look at both their teams, and we both like Jay's team, but we both have Crim ahead of him. You have
What is his schedule? Because he was gloating about his schedule that I feel like we need to go check.
Let's take a look at it.
All right, so Crimmy, he's got me this week, who he's beaten 5-4. Then he's got Chad. Oh boy. Then he's got Justin, who may or may not be in sell mode at that current time.
Right. I mean, he's gonna rack up some wins here, possibly.
And then he's got Eddie. And then he's got Chris.
So he might not play a playoff team the rest of the way.
He might not play somebody who actually wants to win the remainder.
Right. So you factor that into the point of, him kind of creeping up on Jay in the standings, and Crim very well in a month's time might be sitting there with a bye come playoff time, because I mean there really is a lot to like with this team up top to bottom. He's got the pop, Riley, Carpenter when Acuna is there, Tellez, Flores. I'm not sure why. I mean, Gurriel, you could argue shouldn't be in his lineup. Dylan Carlson, I think those are his two weak spots, really. Hunt and Dozier, also kind of a weak spot, I would argue. So those three spots could be better, but Jazz Chisholm does come back soon, which will help that out. And also the rotation. Ian Anderson has not worked out great. And granted, Jacob deGrom, if he actually is coming back, like you said, when he made the trade, would look beautiful right now in Crim's team. If he had Jacob deGrom coming back from injury, if he actually is inserted into this rotation,
I would be petrified.
Yes. I mean, it would be ridiculous, because if you look at Bieber, Gilbert, Lopez, Manoah, and Verlander, I know you call me crazy, and I know the roto points don't say it, but yes, I do think you can make an argument that that's one of the best 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s in the league. I mean, it is. The whips you have 3 whips under a 1. You have Justin Verlander, you could argue, is having like the best year of his career. Maybe the strikeout numbers are down a little bit, but that ERA,
considering he's got a Cy Young.
Yeah, that ERA and whip are ungodly right now. Alek Manoah has easily been worth $30 price tag. Pablo Lopez, I know he's one of your guys. Logan Gilbert. I mean, Crimson's team's scary, and that's why I think moving forward, I mean, I think he's got a lot of keepers too. I know you kind of said he didn't, but Crim's team is scary, and I think it's going to keep moving forward come playoff time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about it. The rotation is obviously solid. It is very good. It is a top 3 rotation. It very well may be the best rotation. It very well might not be the best rotation. I think that it's kind of a toss-up between myself, Peter, and Crimmy on who the best rotation actually is. It's performing better than pretty much any rotation in the league right now, with some of the numbers that some of these guys are putting up. I mean, if he didn't have Ian Anderson giving up 8 runs in the first week, I mean, his ERA would be even incredible. This week would look even a lot better. Kind of goes into it because there's not really a better option outside of that. So, I mean, you kind of have to factor that into it. But my same concerns are still there about Crimmy's team. They haven't gone away. I mean, Verlander's 39 years old. Is Verlander going to throw 220 innings this year? I mean, I guess he's not really on pace for that. I'm sure he'll probably be fine. I don't think they're going to shut down Verlander. I think Verlander will be 5. But it is concerning that he's 39 years old. Alek Manoah, I haven't heard anything on what they're going to do with Alek Manoah, but I don't think that he just continues his pace and starts every 5th day of the rest of the year. I'm not saying, and I've never said that he's going to get hurt. I'm just saying that I don't think that they're going to let him throw 200 regular season innings. That's all. And that the mark was 180. I didn't say 200. I said 180. But if that comes at the wrong time, like if he doesn't get the first round bye and they decide that it's probably best that like, hey, maybe we should like do early September would be the best time to like maybe like give him like a 3 inning outing, like back-to-back 3 inning outings. And that way, like you ramp them back up for the postseason would probably be the way that they do it. That could come at like the worst time. Pablo Lopez, his career high in innings is 111. And generally the rule is 25% of the previous year. So that's about 140 to 150 is what you, oh, that's clicked off it, is what you should expect out of Pablo Lopez, who also has some shoulder problems in the offseason. So and last year. So I don't really think that they're going to try and push him to 200 innings. He's already at 116. So he's already surpassed his career high in innings. Logan Gilbert, what's his career high in innings? I don't think that they're going to let him throw 1,000 or 200 innings. He did have 119 last year. So I do see them probably letting him go to like 160, which could get him enough. But if Seattle falls out of the playoff race, then they might shut him down in the last 2 weeks. And if we're talking about head to head is really what we're playing for, and they shut Logan Gilbert down for the championship game, that could be problematic. Shane Bieber's had shoulder problems. I just, there's a lot of ways that this could go wrong. And I don't think that his rotation, I don't think that he will have all 5 of these pitchers. I don't think he'll have Bieber, Gilbert, Lopez, Manoah, Verlander. I don't think he will have all 5 of those pitchers for every single week of the postseason. I mean, call it. I'm not trying to jinx it. I'm just trying to be realistic for what these young guys are and what, I just think that there's might be a Phantom Elston. I think that there might be, hey, we're going to limit your innings. Hey, we're going to put you in the bullpen for 2 weeks or something like that, to where I don't know what's going to happen with some of these guys. And then you're talking having to put Ian Anderson and Jordan Lyles into your rotation for a week or 2 at a time, which would not look good if they blow up the way that Ian Anderson blew you up this week. The lineup hitters is good. It's a very good lineup led by Austin Riley. You got Lindor, you got Acuna. I mean, it's an incredible 1, 2, 3. There's some spots to be desired. Hunter Dozier is not great. Lourdes Gurriel, not great. Rowdy Tellez probably slots into your first base, and you'd probably try and put somebody else in at your DH. I think the biggest thing here is that he does have a move or two to make, because what if Crimmy does decide that he wants to move Jazz Chisholm? Jazz Chisholm's out for the year, right?
I know he's out for at least until probably early September.
Yeah, I mean, 60-day IL, retroactive to, I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up here in time and read quickly enough when he could come back. I don't know. It doesn't really say. But
that's when you start looking towards a Chris and say, hey,
yeah,
Vlad, Bo Bichette, come on down.
Yeah.
No?
I mean, the thing about those guys, like Chris is keeping those guys. So like, I don't know if you would save
Is
a lot.
Bo Bichette a guaranteed $35 keeper with his
Maybe
numbers?
not, but I mean, I know Bo Bichette would probably strike a chord in Crimmy's heart. You get some of those Canadians come down here and those
I know it's going to be tough to pull Chisholm because he's probably one of the best $2 players in the league, but you are right with
$2 player, is a $7 player.
$7 player. But with where Crim's at right now and kind of this all-in strategy, I don't necessarily mean you have to go after C contracts. I'm sure you can maybe get a keeper back, because I don't think you should trade a $7 Jazz Chisholm and not get at least some type of keeper back. But
like, would you going into next year, would you rather have Logan Webb and Cedric Mullins, or would you rather have Jazz Chisholm?
Jazz Chisholm.
Okay, so like, would Chad trade those 2 for Chisholm? And like, I mean, feel like that's a win-win scenario for both, something like that. And that's what makes it kind of wild card, because if this team adds like 2 players like that, which it could, which maybe Jazz Chisholm could fetch you, then we're talking something that's very dangerous.
Yeah, we are, but we're also talking then where Crim's maybe losing keepers, because if he takes on one of those big contracts, you got Lindor, Acuna, Bieber, Manoah. That's a lot of money.
I don't really see a lot of keepers on this team, but that's just me. Like, I wouldn't keep Contreras at 14. I wouldn't keep, I think Riley is 1. I wouldn't keep Lindor at 41. I know you guys would, but that's okay. I wouldn't keep Carlson, wouldn't keep Gurriel, wouldn't keep Moreno. I'd keep Jazz. Kike, probably not. I'd keep
Gilbert, Lopez, Manoah,
Gilbert, Lopez, Manoah,
Verlander,
Verlander,
Presley,
Presley, and Flaherty.
Flaherty.
So
Yeah,
that's
so
eight keepers.
that's
And
how many?
Flaherty's a guy he could trade too. Like if he really wants to go in all this year, like Flaherty's another piece. Like maybe Chad is like, well, no, give me Jazz and Flaherty for those two, and then I'll give you John Birdie or something like that too. Like
can I just say, like, are you in my DMs reading shit?
no, I don't have that kind of power.
Because like, no, you're reading shit. There's no way you're sitting here breaking down a trade that Chad talked to me about essentially to a T.
No, there's no way. That's funny. I mean, it makes sense. No, I don't. I mean, I talk to people about trades, but I'm not tight with Chad like that. So loose lips sink ships, so not in this case.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
No, I mean, there's a lot to like here, but you're right. I mean, Krim's made probably 16 trades already this year, but it's kind of crazy to say that there might be another one to be made. It just really depends, because when you look at his team, there's not necessarily anything that he desperately need. You could argue he could use another pitcher for depth.
Yeah.
Does he need to put another pitcher in his rotation? Probably not. But just having Jazz Chisholm sit on your bench when you're fighting for a bye and you're this close to possibly getting a bye in fantasy baseball is huge. You're just sitting there for 2 weeks not having to play. I mean, the playoffs are 2 weeks long. So to be, and if I'm going against this, if this rotation stays healthy, goes into the playoffs, remember, it's a 2-week playoffs. I'm scared of that rotation going at it 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly. I mean, this rotation has probably the most upside of anybody, probably outside of Peter. I think Peter's rotation has the most upside of anybody, but I think this rotation, like, I'd say floor loosely. It's kind of, with outside of innings concerns. I mean, you can't argue with the numbers that they're putting up. So, I mean, it's solid all around. Crimmy's definitely got a solid team. I think that there is a few weaknesses here. I am concerned about the innings, as I have been all year, from some of these guys. And he's continued to swap out all these pitchers. Like he traded Chris Sale and got back Logan Gilbert and traded DeGrom. And it's just like, man, all these, he's just swapping out injury concern guys. I wish there was like a trade in there. I wish you would just like take like an Aaron Nola or something like that instead, where you just like, no, there's not going to be any concerns. But with some of these guys, it's very concerning.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's enough shine for Krim. I think we can move on to number 3. And even with these next 3 teams, I don't know how much we'll have to say about them. I mean, they're going to be our 1, 2, 3 in Roto. How they shake out is definitely to be determined. Starting with number 3 is going to be Phil's team, Special K. We thought that he was going to be like the runaway team, but I think the weaknesses that we thought, which were the rotation earlier in the year, are kind of coming to bite him, and it's exactly kind of what we thought it would be. He hasn't been able to hit some of those ace pitchers and some of those high level arms that he's needed. And he kind of sits here. He's starting to fall a little bit behind in the Roto, and there's actually a few teams starting to catch him in some of the hitting categories. Surprisingly, if we peek into the standings here, he doesn't have the runaway leads he had once upon a time. I'm only 7 home runs behind him. RBIs, 30 RBIs behind, probably still pretty secure there. Runs, he's only got a 4-run lead on me. So I think some of these hitting categories, if he's gotten his production out of Aaron Judge and Jose Ramirez, but there's some kind of positions to be that leave a little bit to be desired here. And some of his moves that he's made will help, but I think he's still an arm away from taking home either a head-to-head or a Roto title. And I don't know if he has the ammunition to kind of go get it. Maybe not. What do you think?
Phil's team's really interesting because it's not a quick decline, but you're starting to see some of the cracks. And obviously he traded away a Kyle Schwarber. He had enough ammunition on offense to be able to make these moves. But then, the Ozzy Albies get hurt. Salvador Perez really hasn't played that great, but he got hurt as well. I know he's been moving Ohtani offense to pitching whenever he needs it the most. And it's a tough call to make because at times, look at his pitching. Probably needs Ohtani, but also to hold into those hitting categories. How do you not have Ohtani hit? So it's a really tough call for him because if he doesn't have Ohtani in his lineup, there's only one guy over 20 home runs, and it's Aaron freaking Judge with 38. So, Phil's team's really interesting because I do think we're starting to see him decline offensively, and I kind of weirdly think it's going to continue, and his rotation is not there at all. So in terms of facing this team from a head-to-head perspective, if you can go in and say, can I steal 1 or 2 offensive categories in a playoff matchup and kind of win most of the pitching ones. I mean, he's probably got saves under a good amount, but if you can go in across and win the rest of the pitching matchups, good thing he's got going for him is all of his pitchers are good strikeout guys. But even guys like Luis Garcia has regressed since the last time we've seen him. Carrasco has regressed. Malley, all of these guys have kind of regressed when we thought they were going to. So I remember after the draft, we talked which of these guys filled out their rotation the best. Granted, Crimson's made a lot of trades, but I was like, Crim, 100%. You liked his rotation, and it's really starting to crack.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really held up by Carlos Rodon, but I think we should have innings concerns about Carlos Rodon too. I mean, he's been a guy that's constantly injured in the past. I don't think that they want to push him to 180 innings plus. Plus, I don't know if San Francisco, like there's rumors that they might be sellers at the deadline. They might trade Rodon, or if they don't trade Rodon, then they might just, if they fall out of it in the last month, they just might shut him. Oh, he's a pending free agent, so they probably don't shut him down. So maybe the fact that he's going to be a free agent maybe prevents him from being shut down, but maybe throwing 160 innings would maybe break his arm. I shouldn't wish that. I shouldn't speak that into existence, but
he does have Montas on his bench too, which is good. I didn't really mention him, but
yeah, I mean, if you were to move Ohtani into the rotation, I think it's still solid. I mean, if you go Ohtani 1, Rodon 2, Frankie Montas 3, and then you're just mixing up matchups there after that. Luis Garcia, Carrasco, Malley when he's on the road, not at home, Eric Lauer, Hunter Green, and you're just kind of mix and matching those matchups. And Jake Junis is no scrub either. He's got a 2.98 ERA and a 1.0 WHIP on the year. So I think maybe like he's a dangerous team, but you got to catch him in like the right or the wrong matchups because he has the depth. He's got enough guys that are going to get him innings, and he's actually like really high in strikeouts. I think you mentioned it, and wins quality starts. He is down. He's actually pretty low down in wins quality starts down here. In strikeouts, he is second in the league in strikeouts. So, he's had these arms that have kind of stayed healthy and go deep into games to kind of get him those strikeouts, but I think, yeah, maybe he's one more solid arm away. Maybe he gets a guy that wants to pay for Steven Strasburg, like maybe like a Martin Perez for Steven Strasburg would be a decent trade for both teams that are looking to go in two different directions. Maybe an Ozzie Albies could be traded, but I think he's going to need Ozzie Albies down the stretch to kind of get back to his running, sprinting in his offensive categories as he was kind of running away with them before. Yeah. I think he probably ends up taking off, but if he decides to move Ohtani back into the rotation, he might start to dip a little bit in some of those categories. You might see some guys start to pass him up. So definitely an interesting team. I mean, having the Ohtani factor is such a wild card because you can go so many different ways with it, but definitely certainly a wild card. This team could beat anybody, but this team could lose to anybody.
Agreed. 100%. Yep.
All right. Going to number 2 in our power rankings. This is going to aggravate me. It's Peter. How is Peter number 2 in the power rankings? Why did you put Peter so low in the power rankings?
I had him at 3.
Why? How is this not the best team in the league?
I don't know. I don't have him as number 1.
I know I do. I have him as number 1. You have him as number 3. Tell us why he's only number 3.
I mean, obviously, it's a really good team. I think it's one of the top 3 teams in the league. I think a lot of them are pretty interchangeable just on how they are. Obviously, it's stacked with Rodriguez, Tucker, and Garcia. You don't even need anyone else stealing bases at that point. I think Peter has such a lead on stolen bases. He could trade some stolen bases for something, and it's tough because it's like, which of those guys do you trade? Because they're all doing other things as well. The number one you think of is like, oh, Garcia, but then he's $1 and you're like, well, you don't really want to trade that for $1. Yeah. But that's a lot of value. But Peter's like ran away with the stolen bases category, where if he can make up ground in any others, he should. But again, it is pretty stacked from top to bottom. You don't really see a hole on this team outside of maybe Jose Trevino. Trey Mancini, you could argue, is kind of lower for first baseman, and obviously he just got Eloy back at the utility spot. But pitching wise, as advertised, Bassett, Burns, Cease, McClanahan, great. Pivetta, okay. Holmes has been fantastic, and Kimbrel's not startable outside of his saves because his ERA is not great. His WHIP has been bad, but he is getting you those coveted saves. Otherwise, he would not be a startable person. So between Pivetta and Kimbrel, but you still got those other guys performing. So I mean, I don't think this is by runaway easy the number 1 team in the league, though.
Yeah, it is for me. I think that this team is the most complete team. I think that this rotation, I think, is the best rotation in the league. I mean, this team has 3 top 10 pitchers. I mean,
Yeah.
Corbin Burns, Dylan Cease, Shane McClanahan.
And all strikeout guys by a lot.
All killer strikeout guys, all below a 2.3 ERA. When Corbin Burns has the highest ERA between Cease and McClanahan, I mean, that really says something. So having these 3 guys, there's no better start to a rotation than those 3 guys.
Yeah,
No one can imagine that.
And he called it. We got to give him props. He called it. He did.
He did. And then you got 2 closers on 2 contenders on the Yankees and the Dodgers. You got to love that. He's going to fill in with Pivetta and Bassett. Bassett's been exactly what he needs out of him. He just needs him to be a mediocre pitcher that just goes out, gets you quality starts. He doesn't need to strike out everyone, but he still averages over a strikeout inning. Got exactly what he needs out of him. And then he just fills in the 5th rotation spot with either Pivetta, McKenzie, David Peterson, or Quintana. He's in great shape. And then the offense, maybe there's some guys on the offense that aren't phenomenal, but where? I mean, Trey Mancini's
Tyler O'Neill, Mancini, Trevino, and Jimenez right now. Those are 4 weak spots.
O'Neill's been hurt most of the year, and he's got 2 home runs and a steal over the last week.
He's got 200 at bats. Times that by 3. Are those great numbers? Maybe, I guess.
Yeah, I think he had a wrist injury though, so that's some of his power. So he's kind of getting back from that. But he's also a team, and he's got Max Muncy on his bench, who he may turn it around at any given point. But he's also got players he could trade if he gets guys that want to buy some of these players. What could he get for a $1 at Adolis Garcia? What could he get for?
I think a Machado. I think Machado's an interesting one. Or even, I know it's crazy, but he's got the steals. What could he get for a Trey Turner? I don't know.
He could, but Trey Turner, again, as you said, he's got 69 RBIs.
Yeah.
56 runs scored and a great on base percentage. He needs those stats.
Yeah.
I think Adolis Garcia would be the guy to move because of the low on base percentage, 298.
But that's still a lot of value because the RBIs are there. The home runs are there. The steals are there. So I don't blame Peter if he wants a lot for Garcia, because he should get a lot for Garcia.
I offered him Juan Soto for Julio Rodriguez straight up. He declined. I think that would be a trade that would make the most sense, because I think Juan Soto is going to be better in 4 out of 5 of those categories. And Julio Rodriguez,
I would agree. I just wonder if he looks at it from a next year's perspective, because I think next year Peter's going to go into the draft with very little money because his team has so many keepers and he's set.
Yeah.
I really do. I think he's going to go into the draft next year with very little money, and it's not a bad thing.
No. And, but I think there is a little bit of a chink in the armor here. And I think the chink in the armor is that Clay Holmes, he's been very good. I don't know if they want to give Chapman a few saves down the stretch. Kimbrel, I don't know if he keeps the job rest of the year. He hasn't really been what they've needed him to be. Shane McClanahan is another very innings concerned guy. He's only going into his 2nd year. I mean, his career high in innings, he had 123 last year. I think he gets to about 160. But they're going to do something. And the Tampa Bay Rays have been notorious for taking care of their assets, for making sure that guys aren't overdoing it. They're not just going to let Shane McClanahan throw 200 innings. I know they're not going to do that. It's just not something that they do. Dylan Cease, how many innings is Dylan Cease going to pitch this year? I mean, did he throw? I think he threw 160. He threw 165 last year. So maybe they turn him loose. You don't really ring this bell. You don't think that any of these guys are going to get shut down?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think we're remembering the really strange case of when Strasburg just got completely shut down when the Nationals were in that playoff race, which I think was such a rare thing to happen. I'm not saying that guys don't get, like you said, shorter maybe innings late in the year if their team's close to a playoff spot. Maybe they're pitching 4 or 5 inning starts. But if the White Sox are in the playoff race with a month left, they're not going to just say, you know what, Dylan Cease, you're not pitching anymore. They're just not going to do that.
I view it more of as hey, we're gonna skip your turn in the rotation, or
go to a 6-man rotation.
Go to 6-man.
Yeah.
Hey, you're pitching today, but you're throwing 60 pitches or 5 innings or whatever it is.
And you are right. If the Rays, for example, if the Yankees run away with the division, but the Rays have a wild card spot linked up, right? The wild card spot looks sold. There's 15, 20 games left. Yeah, maybe you see McClanahan, like you said, getting 4 inning starts instead of really going the distance, because if they're not going to catch the Yankees. So I see what you mean, but I just don't see anyone completely just getting shut down.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree. Well, not on a contender anyway. I mean, if the A's want to shut down Frankie Montas or something, if they hang on to him, then we might see something like that. And he's got pieces. He got Tristan McKenzie, Jesus Luzardo, and Max Meyer to dangle to teams, Mark Canha, Gavin Lux. Adolis Garcia, to where like he could really make some noise. I mean, Peter could go get Mookie Betts with some of these pieces. Peter could go
100%.
get like Logan Webb or Yu Darvish or whoever else from some of these teams that might get rid of a pitcher. No reason why he can't. So we'll see how aggressive he gets. Peter's been a little conservative this year, a little quiet, other than with the smack talk. But
yeah, but that Rodriguez, Tucker, Garcia, when you just see them in a row and seeing their numbers and lines, that's a scary offense.
All right, I guess it's time. I don't want this spot. I know what comes with this spot. You did this intentionally. You just want to jinx me by giving me the number 1 spot in the power rankings.
There has been a little bit of a curse for who's had that lately. I will say that. I don't know if that's, something we're trying to replicate here, but
why do you feel like I have to be number 1?
Really because I don't see, it's tough because I don't really see a hole in the lineup. I think you could argue Whit Merrifield's not startable right now, but I know you need the steals. I know that's the category that you're that's really the only category you need to like climb up in Roto. So I understand it. I think when it comes to head-to-head playoffs, though, I don't think that's a guy you might want in your lineup. Ozuna's starting to hit more home runs. I don't really see someone that you could look at your lineup and go, they need to be on the bench. So I think there's that. Alejandro Kirk's turned into one of the best $1 values in the league. Starling Marte has obviously been a nice little pickup for you, Soto. And I think a lot of these guys still really haven't gotten it going yet either. So you have that. You have that as well. And obviously the pitching. I mean, Alcantara could be in line for a Cy Young. Gosman's been pretty solid. You worry about the ERA is not bad, but the whip's a little high.
Yeah,
but he's getting the Ks. Charlie Morton's last 30 days, I know you like hitting that up. That's been great. Urquidy kind of been struggling. Again, the ERA and the whip mixed with those Ks, you could argue is almost not in the starting range. But at $1, you gotta love it.
Starter. Normally it's Ray, but just match.
Yeah. Zach Wheeler's been great. You got to love what he's bringing at that price. Whip, ERA, K-wise. Hendricks and Scott, I think you got those nice saves. So overall, I don't really. And then you got Robbie Ray on the bench, big strikeout guy. You got Duran, who's put up solid numbers. I like the balance. I like the depth. And this is with Devers and Tatis. Devers will come back soon. What is the word on Tatis? When are we looking at for him?
Started taking batting practice with the team. He should go on a rehab assignment next week.
So if you look at my 2 concerns, let's just pretend you insert Devers and Merrifield over that lineup, and then you insert Tatis over like a Miranda or something like that. All of a sudden now that lineup becomes super scary. And come playoff time, I think, you're a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I sure hope so. It's a long season. I mean, Nelson Cruz on the bench as well. So, I have a few guys that can play here. I just hope I don't have to use the depth. Knock on wood, hope to just stay healthy. Luckily, outside of Devers and a few IL stints here and there, I mean, knock on wood, I've had some relatively good health. That, can't be said for a lot of teams that have had some major injuries. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that hopefully these guys can kind of stay healthy. I don't have a ton of trade chips left. I kind of cashed a few of them in. I don't know if anybody wants a $1 Gritchick with his 295 on base percentage. I mean, Laureano is really the one that I have that if I really want to try and go get somebody that I think I might be able to leverage. But other than that, in Patino, if he gets called back up, hopefully they just send him down for a week or 2 and they're going to maybe call him back up soon. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of pretty close to a finished product of what I have here. And so hopefully I can just kind of hang on. Number 1 in the Roto rankings right now. I'm only like number 5 in head-to-head. I mean, and I'm going to lose this week. So there's a chance I miss out on head-to-head playoffs, which would sure be something.
Oh, would that be like me, huh?
It'd be a real shame for a lot of you guys, wouldn't it? But yeah, I mean, I kind of like the team I've put together. I wish I could upgrade first base somehow. Luke Voigt's just not really getting it done for what I expect.
I mean, Mountcastle, that's the bone I got to pick. Mountcastle would be the 6th dude off your bench. You need something at first base, but remember, Mountcastle, I think, was that right? You said the 6th person off your bench?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I figured there was some sarcasm in there because he's definitely not even close to the 6th person off your bench, but
yeah, argument could be made. I don't know
that he's the best, that he would be the best person on your bench.
Yeah, well, argument can be made that he would be my starting first baseman, probably.
Yeah. So that's when you scoffed at the I'm just okay, whatever.
What's Mountcastle's numbers look like? We don't have time. We only got 8-9 minutes left for
sure. They're better than Voigt's.
Part 5. All right, so that wraps up our team summary. Before we log off, we do have our playoff predictions. Eric, with your playoff predictions, it looks like we have them written in seeded order right here. So you have Peter and Krim as your two getting the bye, correct?
Yes, I don't think Peter's catchable with how many weeks are left. I think he's pretty much cruising to that. So, and I do think Krim catches Jay. I like Jay's team, but I really like Krim's team, and I think he's getting hot at the right time. And we looked at that schedule, so I think he might get that bye.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. Why don't you round out your 6 playoff teams?
I got Kyle 3, myself. I do think I get in at 4, Phil 5, and I think Jay, although he does not win the division, I still think his record. I think he still gets in. I think he's got a solid team. So Dave is kind of the one that's kind of the odd man out here because he's got a good record. I think it's going to be Jay and Dave fighting for that spot.
Yeah, I am also eating the chalk. Same 6 teams: Peter, Jay, Eric, Kyle, Phil, and Krim in that order. I didn't realize Krim's his schedule last year, so I had him 6th. He's probably going to finish much higher than that. He's going to finish ahead of me at 4, so I think I might even get like the 6th seed if I'm lucky to even make the playoffs. So I think that's kind of where we're at. What do you have any bold predictions on who do you think is like the most likely to maybe shake things up and make and like really kind of go after it? That's like the biggest wild card rest of year.
It's tough because we talk so much trash about Bryce's team, but really when you look at it head-to-head wise, he's in it just as much as anyone else is. Obviously Justin and Eddie need huge head-to-head weeks this week, but we are getting down to the last few weeks of head-to-head before the playoffs start. So if you don't think you're in it and you don't think you're in it for Roto, those C contracts, like we talked about on the last podcast, are becoming less and less valuable by the day.
Yep.
So we are how many days away are we? We're literally a month away from the fantasy deadline. It's pretty late, but we are pretty late with the fantasy deadline. So it just totally depends.
We want to push it back as much as we can.
Yeah, I'd say literally the week before the head-to-head playoffs, we'll see if any crazy trades happen that will craze it up. But yeah, nothing any bold. Like we said, we both have the same playoff team. So I think we both look at kind of the same 6 teams as being those guys, but that doesn't mean it's not a race. Dave is literally right there in the playoff race. Bryce is too. And if for some reason Justin and Eddie have a big head-to-head finish this week, they could be in it as well.
It's tough to see for me, like from some of the teams that we talked about. It's like for myself and for you and for Phil and some of those teams, like I don't think there's a lot of ways for them to shake it up without like really shaking it up. Like, I mean, sure, like I could trade like Teoscar Hernandez or like, somebody like that or Willie Adames. But like if I'm trading those guys out of my starting lineup, it's going to be hard to me envision like really making my team exorbitantly better. Whereas like teams like Krim, who has got Jazz Chisholm and Flaherty, and Peter, who has all the cheap contracts that he has that teams might want. Like those are the guys that could really shake things up. And I mean, if Peter were to, cash in some of those chips and get a buyer for some serious help, for like maybe like another pitcher, another solid pitcher, or another guy to go in his lineup for some of those $1 guys he's got. I mean, he'll be clear cut runaway with it. I think he'll pass me in Roto and he won't look back. So I think that Krim is definitely a wild card, but I think Peter's the biggest wild card of them all. So I don't know if he'll listen to all 4 parts of the podcast. I know he's a busy guy, but if he is, I think that's probably the move. And if you're a selling team, send some offers for some of these guys. If you put some big names under the nose of some of these guys for your Gavin Luxes, for your Laureanos, for your Jazz Chisholms of the world, you might be surprised what you can get. And as always, slide into those DMs.
I know, and that's the fun thing too, is again, every year is going to be unique because even when we head into next year for year 3, now you have a lot of great players that are going to be C contracts, and it'll be even more interesting how those guys get valued next year. So next year is really when we kind of get to see the league, for lack of a better word, in full swing. I don't know how to describe it, but it'll be fun. So start thinking about those keepers. It's time for some of you teams.
It is definitely keeper time for several teams that should have been thinking keepers probably a month ago, but it's never too late. It is too late, but it's not too late. So slide into those DMs, hit your boys up, get those assets, pick a lane, and get it figured out. We got 4 minutes and 12 seconds left of footage. Anything left to say, Eric?
I'm getting excited for I know the Cubs are we'll see what happens at the deadline. I mean, we kind of talked a little bit about the Soto thing in the chat, what the Cubs will do in the chat. It looks like I think with the added wild card, man, and we've seen this over the last 10 years, there's a lot of teams that just don't want to give stuff up. I mean, when you think like the Red Sox are 4.5 back, the Orioles are in it. In the National League, you still have teams like the Marlins are 5 back of a wild card spot. So it's just, I'm just, yeah, it's crazy to think what'll happen over the next week by the time we get to the deadline. But us Cubs fans will probably have to go through a couple more sad departures. So
yeah, I think there's definitely going to be a few surprises, but I think in all, I think it's going to be a pretty dull MLB deadline. I think we built all these guys.
Does Soto get traded?
I don't think so.
If you're a betting man, no.
I don't think anybody's going to meet their asking price. And if you're going to trade Soto, they want like the Babe Ruthian return, but like obviously like a better return than what they got for Babe Ruth. But
yeah,
like
kind of the same analogy with the fantasy league though. If the Nationals wait till the offseason, that's 2 months of a team's pennant race that they're losing value on. So Soto does, as great as Soto, it's not like they're not going to get a lot for him, but the value does go down some by not acquiring him in the next week.
I just don't like, you ask each individual team, like we asked Chris earlier, like, oh, would you trade Kopech for him? Oh, no, I wouldn't trade Kopech. And it's like, what do you fucking mean you wouldn't trade Kopech for Juan fucking Soto? And I think like every team kind of gets like that with like cherishing their prospects and all that. And it's like frustrating. And like, I guess that's why these things don't get done. These deals don't get done. But like, I think there's a good chance that Juan Soto is a better player than anybody in any farm system right now. That Juan Soto is probably a better hitter than anyone that is on any single minor league team right now.
Well, yeah, he's a once in a generation player. I don't disagree with that at all. He's
like,
23 years old.
I just don't understand. Like, just pay it. Like, if you want to win a World Series and you're a contender, pay it and go and get the guy who is going to take you to the next level because he is a top 5, top 3, maybe offensive player in this league. Just go do it.
I just wonder, like, is there teams that really have enough? I think that's a lot of what it comes down to.
I think it's both. I think it's teams that cherish their assets that are like, oh, I don't want to give up this prospect for him. This prospect could be blah, blah, blah. And it's like, just do it. And then yeah, I just don't think that they're going to meet the asking price.
Because if I'm the Nationals, I'm not just looking for prospects. I'm looking for 1 or 2 guys that are in the major leagues that are actually performing quite well. Like you said, a Kopech. If I'm trading him to the Dodgers, I'm looking at Urias with 4 years of control and saying, give me Urias and a couple of your top prospects.
Dodgers always well because they could throw in Lux and some.
Yep, exactly.
Gavin Lux and Dustin May and boom.
Yeah, I mean honestly, if you told me May, Lux, and Urias, boom, I would do that. They
might afford the $500 million, but they can afford the arbitration for the next 2.5 years and win
100%
more rings.
Could you imagine Soto in that? Oh my God, that's just nuts. Oh God,
I really don't want to. Any other bold prediction? Where does Hap go? Where does Contreras go?
I honestly have no idea. I know the rumors are Contreras to the Astros, which I think is a lot. And honestly, he's getting traded for his bat. Not that his catching's bad, but there's always kind of been that thing that he's not the best framer. He's got a good arm. I don't really think a team's desperate for him to be behind the plate 4 or 5 days a week. So I think he's more of a DH option. Same with Hap, probably outfield bat. You get a year of control. So who knows what they get back? I was kind of a little underwhelmed with all the returns they got back last year with a lot of those guys. Some of the prospects have been decent so far, but I just hope we get. We'll see the names that we get in return, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for something. I would like to keep Hap, but I would move Contreras. My biggest prediction is fingers crossed. I would love to see Whit Merrifield go to the Blue Jays, play second base at leadoff for them, and I would love to see Ramon Laureano go play center field for the Phillies. That would be a dream for my fantasy team, and that's what I'm hoping for. I'm Kyle. That's Eric. We did it. 4 parts. Peace out, y'all.
See ya.